Hello, Sandybell is another one that I watched. Honestly, I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. It's just a boring-ass show where not that much happens and it just meanders on. This little girl lives with her dad because her mom died when she was young. Funny thing, I confused the show with another when sitting down to write about it, mainly because the show is just so generic and uninteresting, and it reminds me of a million other better shows that I've seen from both the 70's and 80's era already. It's just another whiny crybaby boohoo, I'm all alone, and I have to grow up in a hard world, show. The little girl helps get a ball out of some new rich girl's house who just moved in. The dumbass little girl, of course, enters the home and decides to get distracted because she's a dumb kid. One of the snooty rich ladies catch her and tells on her to her dad and says that her dad should resign from being a professor. Why the fuck should the professor resign just because his daughter was stupid and wandered onto a lawn? Makes no sense. And I hate scenes where characters don't just explain what they were doing when there's miscommunication. The snooty rich lady thinks the girl is trying to steal something, but obviously the girl is just staring at a painting. I mean, I guess I could see why she thought that, but whatever. The girl just got startled and, accidentally knocked it down. The problem is that the girl struggled to speak up and fully defend herself at times in which she definitely should, which was annoying. Also, this is another show where the main character has a stupidly powerful dog. After some bizarre confrontation, the snooty girl threatens the little girl with her two dogs, and the little girl's big-ass dog just growls and scares them off. At the end of the episode, the little girl just goes to apologize to the snooty rich people. We meet the older woman, who was the one in the painting. What's interesting is that the rich lady ends up becoming somewhat of a role model. The girl ends up looking up to her, and the rich lady, connects with her in a way. However, I got a feeling that the show won't take things in an interesting direction, and we will just get more of the same meandering bullshit. Besides, I can only find one episode. I also realized how that show's actual premise went over how the little girl moves to London where she is trying to find clues about her past. So who knows, maybe it could have had something more interesting up its sleeve, but as of right now, it's just very meh, 3 out of 10. So the next show I watched was called Zillion. So the concept of this show is that in the future there was a meteor that got shut down, and it has Earth-like looking NES zappers inside of it, I guess. And that's what the humans need to use to save the world. Really dumb. Concept feels very cheap and thrown together. If the guns weren't specifically designed for humans, then why do they look like Earth guns? Also, the characters, I guess, were kinda entertaining, but the action of the show was just not there. Just a bunch of cheesy old stilted animation. Good pacing, but I wonder how far the show could take such a cheesy concept without it feeling too stupid. Their interactions / introductions of them were entertaining enough though, so I did give this one a 6 out of 10. However, I wonder if the show could maintain this rating. I would like to consider watching more later, but whatever. Almost feels like the show's purpose was to promote a toy or whatever. You never know. At least I don't think so. Who knows? So the next one I watched was called Dr. Slump, Arale-chan. Now, I'm just gonna get this right out of the way real quick. I was supposed to write more about this segment, but fuck it, I don't want to. My time is too valuable for the show. Of course, a lot of people can tell, with the show. As you can see, it's kind of a lolly show, which isn't good. So it's kind of sus. But I do find it to be super egregious. I don't think the character, from what I saw in the first episode, was too overly sexualized, but it definitely does push it. The mad scientist guy I thought was pretty funny with his spurts of seriousness and ridiculousness. His comedy and cheebiness, I thought cheesy comedy, I thought worked. Even though parts of the episode were kind of enjoyable, the show doesn't leave me looking forwards to more. Other characters besides the robot girl and the scientist just aren't interesting right off the bat for me. Because this is a Toriyama work, I do feel compelled to watch more because I hear the show gets funnier. But I'm just going to put this on a hold for right now. Just not the most compelling. Just a 4.5, maybe 5 out of 10. I don't know, I just really wasn't feeling this one, and it's just, I don't know, I just don't get it. Not my thing. Alright, so the next show, with this fucking extremely long name that I just don't feel like trying to pronounce right now. So this show is about how these two siblings are sad about their mom being in the hospital. Their dad is also very busy and has no time for Christmas, so the two are left at home watching the neighbors have a good time on Christmas. Anywho, this magical fairy thing is searching for a magical blue bird that has the fucking power of happiness or something, and this fairy, I guess, needs this in order to see her daughter smile again, because I think this fairy girl's daughter is sick or whatever. The fairy girl asks the children to help her in return. They will cure their mom. Interesting show, but I think the pacing kind of bothers me, and each scene just feels like it overstays its welcome. I like all the characters so far. I think that the story could possibly go into interesting places, but I wouldn't put my money on it with how bloated this episode felt. If I could find more episodes, I would watch a little bit more. But like I said, the scenes were just really bloated, which makes the show a bit boring. 5 out of 10 for now, but it could be more or less, depending on how it goes. Too bad I couldn't find more episodes. So this next one is called Maho Shoujo Lullaby, or whatever. In this one, we see a girl who lives in the world of magic, and somehow, after a strange altercation with a thief, she falls through a portal into the world of humans. Down there, she stays with an old couple. They get pissed off about how seemingly vague she is and calls her out for lying and playing games, but she proves that she is from the world of magic. The rest of the show just seems like the girl trying to get back to her own world with the help of new friends that she meets along the way, while also dealing with a mustache-twirling villain. I'll admit, I like the cutesy nature of the main character, but the show has absolutely nothing to offer. Feels stilted and is way too slow and boring for a kid's show. 3 out of 10. I kind of like the setup of the show, of this girl traveling until she reaches her goal, but just very meh. The next show is called The White Whale of Mu. Yeah, I'll admit, this is one of those shows where I had a hard time following along with what's going on, but from what I understood, it just wasn't very good or interesting. Maybe I was tired when I watched it, but just couldn't get into it. Basically, a telepathic little girl and a giant cyborg call a bunch of kids to help fight off Atlanteans who were trying to get revenge from this war that happened a long time ago or whatever. Interesting concept, I guess. It's just I couldn't find myself getting very engaged. The characters just didn't do anything for me, especially with the terrible pacing. The characters just spend way too much time bitching about nothing. I'll admit I lost focus watching, and I just couldn't stay interested. 3 out of 10. Captain Sabusa is another show I watched, which is about a kid who moves in order to go to a school known for its prestigious soccer. Right, so he's a soccer kid. The kid is really good and finds out about the rivaling nature of the schools in his area. And overall, I'm getting a vibe that tells me that this show may have elements that I've enjoyed in other sports anime I like. Not the most interesting show I've seen, but I wouldn't call it bad exactly. I only watched one episode, so who knows, maybe it does get more stale. The characters in the setup, seem enjoyable, but I do question how many of these episodes could hold my attention. I could totally see the rival aspect of the show being completely cheesy and overplayed. I want to watch more to properly discern the quality, however, I just don't feel like investing time into the show like this right now. At the end of the day, I doubt that the show will do anything new that I haven't seen, from the first episode or anywhere else. So far, it's just a 4.5 out of 10. Not good, not all the way bad either, but just painfully stale and just, I don't know, not enough positives for me. So the next show is called Rock and Roll Kids. So this one's about two brothers who live together. One is still a little kid and the other is seemingly an adult. After the older brother goes out for band practice, the little brother decides to disobey and go out by himself. And along the way, he meets, other characters that will probably play more of a role in the future. I felt that this episode was nothing but a setup. I see how characters like this could be thrust into interesting situations where all the characters have to mature and grow together, but I don't have a whole lot of hope that this show will remain engaging, especially with this kid character. I mean, characters are somewhat likable. I could see how certain things could evolve out of them and end up being the saving grace, but the show just seems a little too stale. And the older brother and his band were just cheesy. Just not very good animation, not much going on, staleness. 4 out of 10. AI Shoujo Pollyanna Story is another strange show I watched. Out of the whole episode I watched of the show, the only takeaways that I could gather is that because this girl lives with her loving father who tries to make her happy, she has to become very carefree and happy. Of course, this could lead to a bigger problem later, with complacency. Her dad wants her to be a happy kid, and then this ladies' aid chick, who the girl's dead mother told her to look after her, wants her to act like a proper woman. So this complacent, pampered child, can't get to play the way she wants to. But to be fair, the kid actually isn't really bratty at all. It's just, stupid, mean, mom died, evil witch parent, fucking Snow White bullshit. And of course, the dad also fucking dies. So in the next episode, the girl will have to deal with the harshness of her fucking situation and grappling with it. I hate to be so dismissive about shows, but this is yet just another crybaby, sad sack tale of some little girl living a shitty life. My biggest gripe is that it just doesn't feel any different from any of the other shows that does the same thing. The ladies' aid chick is just another one of those shit-headed adult characters that are just mean as fuck for little to no reason and just doesn't feel real even. This show gave me nothing that could give me insight as to what the show could offer in the future. Just a bad 4 out of 10. What's Up Mechadoc is another one that I watched. Holy Mother of Ass does the show just not do it for me. It's pretty much about this team of mobile mechanics who, I guess, get their shop at the end of the episode, who go around and help racers and other people with their car issues. Of course, the main character is also a racer and gets involved in, dealing with villains and stuff like that. I thought the characters were likable, and I do see how the show could work, I guess, but I just don't find the show to be engaging. The villains just seem so meh and just feels like a cheap kid show. Strong 4, maybe 5 out of 10. Cat's Eye is another one that I watched. Overall, I guess I liked this show for what it was. I think that this is another alright one for the kids, I guess. The characters seem fairly likable. It's just painfully mediocre and stale with not a whole lot of interesting animation. My problem with the show is mainly its simplicity. It may work for kids, but anyone above, a kid intellect is just not going to do anything for you. The show follows a group of girls who are involved in some espionage action where they break into museums and steal things. One of the girls is in a relationship with the detective who is trying to catch them, but the detective is, of course doesn't know this. The dynamic between the characters I do think is interesting, but there's nothing really special being done here. Dialogue, to me, is just not very engaging, and I don't think I want to see the boyfriend unfairly duped all the time by the thief girlfriend. It's just, I could see that the stale status quo that they're trying to establish, and it's just not very interesting. It would just all get old for me. The episode was just not very smart or clever with how it went about all the events that played out. Strong 4, maybe like 5 out of 10. So the next show is called Uchuzen Sagittarius. So this show is basically a space adventure show featuring anthropomorphic animals. Funny thing is, with the style of the show, I could see it being something that I would love to watch years ago. Maybe if it was when I was a kid. If it was, on something like Jetix. The whole aesthetic of the show, I just find to be lovable. Besides all that, as an adult, I get nothing from this. The basic personalities of these characters, I guess, is fairly enjoyable, but there isn't really a whole lot meaningful aspects, to everything else to, keep me invested. The main character was kind of likable with this whole family situation of having a baby. I wanted to see good things happen for the character. He then had a silly, moral quandary of learning to be okay with being a girl, and, it was just kind of funny to see. And he learns this after accepting the wishes of the scientist lady that him and his partner were set out to find. Basically, the scientist chick has a theory of where a lost civilization. However, because she is a woman, none of the male scientists and professors took her seriously on her work, which is why the scientist lady just took off, and, why the main character had to go after her and find her. Anyways, the scientist lady's companion / love of her life is trying to get her back, but she doesn't want to make it easy, and she also doesn't want anyone finding out her thing, her mission. I guess at some point after the mission, when they let her do her thing. Overall, the show is very simple with not much to explore besides the scientist lady but wanting to, combat sexism and prove that she's right or whatever, and that's obviously the theme of the show. Obviously women have a place in the workplace too, or whatever. The aesthetic is likable and the characters are decent enough, but for some reason, the whole experience just felt so boring. If this had a cheesy dub, and I was like 6 to 8 years old, I would absolutely love the show, but as an adult, I have no purpose for what it does. Pacing wasn't the absolute worst, but the whole thing did feel like it was chugging along. Strong 4, maybe like 5 out of 10.